Well, that's a great way to start the day. Well, welcome. My name is Mark Newman. I'm part of the North America technical team for Lotus. I'm going to spend the next hour going over, well, I can read it right here. This is kind of cool. Exceptional web experience. Hopefully you'll have some fun here. It's the last session of the day before we get to go to the amusement park. So if you've ever seen me present before, I'd like to have lots of fun. So if you have any questions, a lot of this will be live demonstration. Just raise your hand, go yo Mark, and yell out your question because I'm here to answer any question you have in the next hour. So without any further ado, let's get started. So basically the agenda, because they made me have charts, I have to have a couple of charts up front. It was a requirement for me to get my hotel room here, would you believe? Anyway, how we deal with content, we're going to start with that. We're going to talk about what is an exceptional collaborative web experience and then spend most of today doing the live demonstration. So how do we deal with content? What are some of the collaborative problems that we have during the day? And a lot of it is finding information. How do you find information inside your company, outside your company? How do you share that information with your partners and customers? And if you look at some of the numbers up there in hours, there's a lot of money being wasted in trying to find content that's out there. So I'm going to hopefully show you in my demonstration today how the Lotus web experience can actually help you find, gather, share, and reuse information inside your company. And why is information becoming even more harder to find? Because the employees are scattered all over the place. You just can't walk up to Mary or Bob in the cube next to you and talk to them. They're actually all over the place. 90% of employees work in different locations than their headquarters. 70% of employees in different locations than their bosses. I haven't had a boss where I live in like 10 years. So again, information now, to share it, you need better tools to do that, and Lotus has a solution, as I'll show you. See, a CEO survey we did. We actually asked CEOs what is the most important thing that they are looking for. And the reason this is how many people here are from IT, out of curiosity? Raise your hand if you're more like IT-based people. How many people here are more line of business people? Okay, well, I found out that in our house where I live, I am IT, I'm the CIO. I thought I had full control of all the decisions in the house on computers and software. Turns out my wife is the CFO and CEO, so I can't do anything until she actually gives me permission, and that's where this comes into play. You got to keep the CEO happy if you're line of business, and the line of business wants employee-driven integration. They want employees to be more productive, doing their own thing, sharing data, taking information and reusing it in new ways without going back to bother IT. Global collaboration, again, sharing that information. The reason this is very key for me is you can't get any money until you have met what the CEO of your company wants. I wanted to get a brand new iPhone in my house, and I had all these reasons why, but my wife could care less until she found out all her friends were on Facebook, all her friends were Twittering, and all the book clubs were and all this, and all of a sudden she came to me saying we need to up our infrastructure for collaboration. And voila, I got a cell phone. So anyway, this is the reason why these surveys are important, but again, we have solutions to help solve these problems. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about collaboration and content and who authors the content. I worked with a company where every piece of content authoring went through IT. Do you think that was a fast, nimble company? Not really. Things just didn't get updated because it was too hard and encrypted. You got to make it easy for line of business, easy for people that don't know what's going on. They can just fill out a nice, Word document type format. So I'm going to show you today how we can make content easy so that line of business can do it. IT does not turn into a black box of stoppage. And also, line of business wants to own the data, and they'll change it more often for you. So your line of business can actually make IT look better because your sites will be more rich, your content will be more fresh because they can actually make all the changes. Two more charts, then we get to the demo. I told you it'd be quick. Okay, leverage what others know. That's a very key thing. Chris Crummy was presenting yesterday. He talks about knowledge accidents. You need to put tools in front of your end users, in front of your partners and customers that let them do knowledge accidents. What that means is I can be looking for something else and other information fall into my lap that I go, oh, I didn't even know I needed that, but I can make a better business decision now. So we're going to show you today what an exceptional web experience can make knowledge accidents happen very quickly. And the last slide is, these are the products that can make it happen. So today, these are the things that I'll be talking about. Hopefully after 3 days of Lotusphere, you've all seen this, learned it, you know what else these products are, but these are the products that are behind the demonstration that I will show. Okay, so the demonstration, now any questions so far on what I did? I told you, in order to get a hotel reservation, you actually had to turn in your presentation, then IBM actually let you get a hotel reservation, so I had to do charts. Okay, so 3 things: exceptional content, exceptional collaboration, and exceptional information finding. Those are the 3 parts of the demonstration. So we're going to get started with the exceptional content part of the demo. How can I empower my end users to find content, basically make that information more relevant by ranking it and tagging it, and then how do I make it easy for end users to actually create their own content and update it. So that's where we're going to get started. So let me get out of here and log on. So right now we actually logged on to our Exceptional Web Experience product, and we're looking at some Web Content Manager up here, and there's some portal applications. If you're not familiar with what a portal is, it's basically just a little piece of information sitting on a web page, and portal feeds that information. So up on the top left, we have a movie that might be interesting to some people. On the bottom middle, we actually have a bunch of news articles. On the top is not normally what you'd have on your content site, but on the top, I, as a site administrator, said I'd like to, and let me kind of highlight this so you can see it, I'd like to, on my website, highlight some information for my unauthenticated users or maybe customers to see, some highlighting science and business, and over on the right side is science and business news. So again, I have an unauthenticated user looking at a bunch of content that's out there. Well, my person now says, you know what, I've heard that this Jeopardy thing's coming on. You all heard about Jeopardy? IBM's mainframe computer, Watson, is going to go out there and basically take on the world. Well, he might be interested in finding some more about that. So on the left is what's called a tag cloud. So this is the knowledge of basically a folksonomy where people have tagged news articles on my site for me. So again, I'm having my end users tag content, my customers, and voila, this list gets built. And if I drag it to the right, more tags come out there. If I go to the left, less tags come out there. So I'm interested in Jeopardy. So I click on Jeopardy, and automatically now the page is going to come up and say these are all the really cool articles about Jeopardy that are out there. At least I hope so. There we go. So basically now I have two articles that have been tagged by Jeopardy by my customers. And one of them is about the Jeopardy pregame, and one of them about Watson meets the Jeopardy competitors. One's rated with 2 stars, 2 users rated it with 4 stars, and 5. So a new feature of our web content management system is the ability to do tagging, which I showed you on the right, and then also ratings. So if I want to look at an article here, I can actually rate the article, and this is out-of-the-box functionality. So again, it's the folksonomy, where the masses are going to vote on what you see. And as I look at my article here, I can read it and I say, this is the greatest thing I ever saw. Well, I can actually click on the ratings, find out that 2 people gave it 5 stars, 4 people gave it 2 stars, and I'm going to rate it 2 stars just to make it a little different. So I save that. So now, out of the box now, when you build your content sites with our Exceptional Web Experience package, I can now do things like ratings of content, tagging of content just that easily. If I'd like to add a tag, like I read this article and I say it really has to do with game shows, I'm going to now tag this so that I can start tracking tagging. If you're familiar with what tagging is, I can now say that this is game shows. If I can spell game shows right. So I've added my own tag to this document right there. So up on the top now, it's going to say that I've now tagged that for myself and other people to use as game shows, because we're actually talking about a game show that's out there. So when the page comes back now, it's going to do that. So how many people here have existing portal sites that wish you could actually, tag information that's being used and basically rate information that's out there? A couple people? Well, one thing that also we've gotten feedback for is, wouldn't it be great if I could do that for not just web content, but any web page in the portal product and any portlet in the portal content? So I can actually come up here, click on this button right here, and what's going to come up right now is the ability for me to rate and tag this portal application. Or I can do the exact same thing for the page itself. So I can actually rate the entire page by clicking on the Actions button. And I can actually rate and tag the actual full page of information. So now I can start mining basically the crowd mentality of what's good and what's bad on my portal, and then start bringing this back into things like core metrics and find out what things I should add and what things I should remove from my site. Okay. So let's now actually log in as a user of the site here. So we're going to log in as Robert, and Robert actually works in IT. Hopefully, okay, I think I typed it right. So basically now, what we're going to do is, I typed it wrong. Gotta love live demonstrations when the end user is the bug. So we're now going to log on to the site, and the site's going to change because our web experience now is going to go out and look at who is Robert. He works in a certain department, has certain things about him we know from back in things like an LDAP or a database, and our personalization engine now is going to rechange the site and change it for Robert. The first thing you notice up here on the far left is that he has personalized news from the IT department about a jam that's coming up, a social business jam, and they start sharing ideas across the IT department. We also added some applications across the top. So all of a sudden now he has some business applications across the top with the tabs. So again, his applications he does to do his day-to-day job has now been pushed to Robert across the top. We've also added some social networking by adding some connections blogs on the right side. So we looked at what blogs Robert's looking at, and I've now made that information available out there. So we dynamically assembled a page and made it very personable for Robert. And the reason we did this was if you go back to finding information is hard for employees and customers, by looking at who you are, we should be able to dynamically build the pages and push that content out to Robert. Now, if we bring up another browser here, so look at the news on the left is for IT. We're going to log on now as another user, Frank, and Frank happens to be in sales. So Frank is going to log on, and we're going to read his profile, and his page is going to change because he's in sales, and he sees different information than the IT department does. So up there on the left for Frank, we now see sales forecast because that's what Frank's driven by. He's driven by money. He has to sell something to make money, so there's some sales forecast information for Frank. There's Frank's blogs down the right side. Now, a cool thing we mentioned earlier was in an exceptional web experience, we want end users to be able to change, create, and manage their own content without going back to IT. So Frank is actually in charge of the sales forecast news in the far left pane. So he has a little arrow sitting up there. So how easy are we going to make this for Frank, a salesperson, to actually change that news item for all the sales team? All he has to do is basically click on this arrow, click Edit, and it's going to bring up a rich text editor right in the middle of the screen, and now he can just do in a WYSIWYG editor, make all the changes he wants, and without going back to IT to make that change. So right now it's going to bring up our editor right here in the browser. No extra tools are needed. So if you notice right here, here are our categories out here. Sales, so it's a sales article. And then here's the actual body of it. It's kind of short, but he clicks on that, and inside that body now brings up a rich editor from eFox, one of our partners, but it's included in the product, and I can now make changes to this document. I can do things like, make the title bigger or smaller. I can make this a lovely shade of Lotus yellow if I want. Out here, if I thought the text might be a little small in the first part of the section, I can bold it. I can do all these kind of things. Or I can actually bring up Microsoft Word, or I can bring up PowerPoint, or my favorite Symphony application, and I can paste in Fidelity right inside this box, and it'll automatically do that. Or if you're a propeller head, and you like to do things like, style pages, and strong and span tags, all that stuff, guess what? IT people still love this tool because they still have all the freedom inside their web content to actually make that work. So that looks pretty good. So now we're actually going to go save this back. Oh, if you also notice, I know who the editor is. So out throughout the whole thing, you're going to see people's names pop up like Frank Adams. And he's green, so I can chat with him I want through the same time. So even though I'm editing this article, if Frank wasn't the last person to edit it, I could actually start chatting with the editor or bring up information about Frank Adams. What things he likes, what articles he's actually done. Does he blog? Has he shared files? So right from inside this article I'm working on, I can click on the author's name, find information about him, and chat with him all from inside this web experience. Again, our goal is to push content and information right to the creator's fingertips. Okay, so we're going to save and close this. And our updates will go back live to the site. Once that's done, and then Frank now can move on to his other tasks here. Okay, so now the page is going to automatically refresh, and you'll see our yellow text, and I forgot what else I bolded or something like that that's out there. So right there, so we just easily empowered that salesperson to make their own changes, work with their own content on the site. Frank also has the ability to add new content if he wants to, but he can do that. So another thing we want to do now is talk about multilingual. Anybody here have the need to do multilingual, to be able to share information with multi-languages? Well, an exceptional web experience better be able to be an international type application. So I can actually now bring up multilingual also, the ability now to have one common front end to my end users and let them pick what language they'd like to see the content in. So over here on the left, we actually have all the content in English. If I choose to make that a different language like French or Spanish, I can actually just click on the Spanish button now. It's now going to bring up all that same content in the Spanish language. So a Spanish person can understand it or French. So there it is. If you also notice, it changed the tabs across the top to Spanish also. So not only do we change the content, it also pulled the different titles up here for Spanish also. So again, the whole page now has been redefined for multilingual. We have 3 ways of doing this in our exceptional web experience. One is a person can choose the language. 2 is they can actually set up in their profile, they like all the content in the portal done in a foreign language like Spanish, French, German, double byte, Chinese, or whatever they're looking for. Or 3, we can actually read the browser preference right off their browser setting, find out it's set for Spanish, show them the web content in Spanish. So this is out-of-the-box functionality to support multilingual inside the exceptional web experience. Okay, let's actually move now into a scenario of, one last thing I did want to show, and if we can switch over to this machine. This is kind of cool. So what happens now as I start adding content to my site and I want to start analyzing it? I have my star rating, which is pretty cool. I have my tags, which are pretty cool. But how do I, as a business analyst, find out what people are actually clicking on if they're not taking the time to rate and tag that? So with our partner core metrics that we acquired last year, I can now take an existing website like this one, and I, as a content author, can come up here to the core metrics plugin, and then basically a flyout comes over. When I click on Live View, it's going to lay on top of my page that I'm looking at, and it's going to tell me how many hits we've had during the last month on it. 750 hits. We've had 652 clicks, page views, sessions, all that information. But more importantly, when I click on the overlay button, it's going to overlay on top of my existing content what everyone was clicking on. So on the right side of the page now, if all goes well here, and it didn't time out, you'll actually overlay the core metrics screen. I think it might have timed out. Let's try this again. Ooh. Just give me 2 seconds here to see if it comes back. And let's do this. Let's just do it this way. Just to show you that it is live code, we can actually just log right back in. Whoops. So we log back in with our buddy Frank. We click on Live View as an end user here. It gathers the data. We want to do at least a full month here, so at least it looks a little more real here. And we now turn Live View on. Well, normally it actually, I'm not quite sure what's happening. Maybe afterwards you can see, but it actually put on top, like you have 10% of the people clicked on the personalized news. It'll actually overlay, there it goes. See, it's live code. So it actually tells you now percentage of people that clicked of the 750 clicks, where they actually clicked on your site, every single page tab, every single news article, everything they clicked on. So you know exactly what is relevant, what is not relevant, and how you can actually make better business decisions with that. So this is what you'd give what I call a content creator like Frank, who's actually adding content to the site so that he can actually make better business decisions. The tool also, though, will work with more IT people that want to start doing some analysis, so they can actually bring up a full core metrics site here and then bring up some analysis, and we want to look at the content overview as it loads up. And this analysis then would actually give them trends of page views over time, bounce right off the site. So all of a sudden I'm providing more information about my website of what people are actually doing. For example, you can kind of tell that, in January when all the spike was, from the beginning of January to middle of January, we did lots of demos. As we got closer to Lotusphere, we started tailing off of the people that actually use this. The reason to do this is my father told me, don't do something unless you measure it. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. So think about this on your sites today. How many of you are measuring your content usage like this so you can make better business decisions? And I believe they just announced today that you get a free 90-day trial of Core Metrics when you buy our Exceptional Web Experience product. So you can start trying it out to see what you think. Okay, if we go back to this computer over here, that'd be awesome. Okay, so now we're going back to Frank now and talk a little bit more about what Frank does on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to start out with some things that he normally does. He looks at some of his to-do lists. He looks at some of his emails and stuff like that. So what I'm showing you right now is basically another web page that brings Domino Mail in on the top. He has it activities on the far left that show him his to-do list from all his connections activities. He's got his profiles list so he can search for expertise inside the company. Notice the little green dots everywhere so I can hover over and chat with people inside my mail or in activities or blogs or profiles. Well, I happen to notice that I happen to get a request here from Dennis Michaels. He is the CEO of the company. He asked Frank, he says, I need some fax document created about the new Jeopardy game that's coming up. I need you to create it for me. Ever get one of those requests where you're like, I know nothing about the topic that I'm supposed to do my report on? What do? Well, luckily, we actually have a great web experience here to help you. So he's going to go down here, Frank, and he's going to go down to his profiles portlet. And what he's going to do is he is going to actually find some profile information. He wants to find who is the experts on Jeopardy. So he just types in Jeopardy here. And it's now going to go out into the connections world and say, who is the expert on Jeopardy that's out there? And it's going to come back with, hopefully, someone that he can talk to and find out some information on. Turns out our buddy here in IT, Robert Martin, is the guy that knows all about Jeopardy. So what I'm going to do now is normally I pick up the phone and start calling Robert, but you know what? Maybe Robert's not available. As you see by his little yellow icon, he's not available. So maybe I can find out what things that Robert's been doing. So I'm going to click on his profile right here and basically bring up his business card. And I think I clicked here. Here we go. So I bring up Robert's business card. Where did my business card go? Come on, Robert. So I'm going to bring up his business card because on that business card, I'm going to be able to find out basically all of the intellectual capital that Robert has actually created here. So as we refresh the page here, hopefully the business card will come up. So there's Robert's business card. And inside here, on the bottom here, I can look at his things like his files, his blogs, his forums. I want to see if he's ever done anything with Jeopardy. So I'm going to look at his files to see if I can steal some of his intellectual capital. So I went from an email on Domino to a forums, to a profiles portal on the page, and now I'm looking at the files from Robert, and voila, those are his files out there about Jeopardy. So we partnered for this demonstration with a company called Genus, and they have a product called Media Upshot. So luckily, by adding Media Upshot into the Connections product, when Robert actually added these videos to the site, it actually enhanced them and made them more usable to people that want to mine data. So for example, if I want to look at a video for Watson here, I click on this, and when Media Upshot, we loaded that video in there, it automatically converted it, and now it's live streaming that video to Frank's desktop with no plugins necessary. So let's say this video was a 50 meg file. Instead of downloading it, seeing if I liked it or not, I can stream the first few minutes to see if this is really what I want. So again, with Genus Media Upshot, I'm able to take rich media and move it in a whole new way inside Connections. Well, that looks pretty good, but again, I'm not sure if it's exactly what I'm looking for. Wouldn't it be great if maybe I could look at all the different pages inside the video, kind of look like I paged through a PowerPoint to see if I like it? Wouldn't it be great if I could kind of page through the frames of a video? Well, guess what? They actually have this thing here called keyframes. So when that video was actually uploaded into Genus Media Upshot, it automatically took keyframes, which is shown here on the bottom of that video. So I can now look to say, hey, this is exactly the scene that I'm looking for, and zip right to that and stream it right to my desktop from inside Connections. So all of a sudden now, I've really changed rich media into a whole new pattern here by adding this Genus Media Upshot plugin. So I decide that's pretty slick. I might want to use it. Well, guess what? They actually have over here on the bottom left when that was actually uploaded, I have the full version that might have been HD video, and they also converted it into certain different frame rates for smaller use. Sometimes you might want to put it on a website inside, let's say, web content. I want a small version. And if I'm going to download it onto a DVD, I want a larger version. So automatically in Connections here, when that video was uploaded, it actually transcoded all that stuff into different formats for me. Made it very usable. Also, you can attach stuff to it. So actually, Robert said this is such a cool video, and he attached a white paper and a system design doc that was out there. So basically, I was able to, with Connections, find Robert, find some video, look through if it was the right video, and learn some things about the product. Well, let's see if there's any other things about Jeopardy out here. Well, the first thing I notice is that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of files out here inside Connections. But luckily, on the right here is a tag cloud, which is basically, the community tagging things for me. So if I want to find everything to do with Jeopardy, I click one button and I find JPEG images, I find PowerPoint presentations, symphony documents, posters, videos, all within inside here. So if I'm going to say, I might be interested in learning about this presentation right here, again, I can just click on that presentation, and Genius Media Upshots, automatically tied with Connections, has basically converted it into what I call a nice, Teresa, what's the word I'm thinking for? Lightbox. So basically, I can just click on this and jump next page, and I can now scroll through this presentation again without downloading that massive PowerPoint or Symphony presentation. I can just basically skip through this. Is this really what I'm looking for? If it is, then I can download it. So again, we're now basically taking rich media and really using it to make my end user Frank here more productive. Well, the last thing that Frank needs now for his PowerPoint presentation or Symphony presentation to Dennis is he needs some images. So there happens to be a header document that Gloria put out here. So I'm going to click on that, and that looks like it could be it. And again, the nice thing about this is automatically when I was uploaded into Connections, it actually created different sizes for me automatically, 640 by 480, 1024, and the full version 1600 by 1024. So all of a sudden now, I, as the end user, don't have to find someone in Graphic Artist to make me different sizes for my presentation. I can automatically get that right out of the Connections thing here. So again, that's just some information that this Genius plugin for Rich Media really enhances Connections to do that. Okay, so what I've done now is it's looking pretty good. So we're going to go back now. I created my presentation, and what I need now is to let my boss, Dennis, know that he is actually going to get this presentation. So let's go back to this and click on Mail. Any questions so far? I've been doing all the talking. Is this going okay so far? Okay, so make sure. Okay, so let's go back here now. So Frank, again, got this request via snail mail from his boss, because his boss doesn't understand how this stuff works. So he's going to respond back from inside iNotes here, and he's going to respond back to Dennis and say, yeah, it's really good. It's done. So basically, I'm going to say, yep. I guess he wouldn't say yes. I'll say, here is the presentation. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach that presentation I gave to him. But if I just go out here and I attach this great presentation that I just created, and it's called a Jeopardy Fact Sheet. If I just attach that document and send it back to my boss, Dennis, does that help out anybody else in my corporation? Am I going to be a good friend like Robert was sharing his videos, or like Gloria was sharing her presentations and documents? I wouldn't be if I just sent it back to Frank like that. But inside our iNotes here, if I actually click send, it's now going to automatically come up. It's going to come up and say, do you want to send it the old-fashioned way and attach that 10 meg PowerPoint to your email, or are you going to put it in a location that can be shared across your whole organization? So I'm going to pick the second option because I like to do that. So there happens to be a place out here called Jeopardy. So I'm going to store this where everyone else in my web experience can share the document. And now, basically, when that email gets sent, instead of sending Dennis an actual attachment, it's going to send him a link back into that community where all of that information for Jeopardy is stored so that everyone else can actually use that information that's out there. So again, reuse is being done very good this way. And I'm a little nervous that my community is not up and running. But we will move ahead. So what I showed you right now is great web experience by doing this all from inside a browser. But But people don't always work just from a browser. They work in all different places. So we need to make this information available in many different places. So for example, what I want to do is I'm going to bring up Lotus Notes. So inside Lotus Notes client, I can still get at all that same documents I showed you earlier. I can get at, the connections files. I can get at my quicker places. I can get at all this stuff. So when Frank logs onto his Lotus Notes here, and I should have started this before. I wasn't thinking. Here, we'll start same time connect just so I can get more things going here at once. So the goal here is when you want to make sure where the employee's eyes are is where they have access to that information. So basically inside my mail client over here, I have my activities, I have my files, I have my places out here, and there's my place for Jeopardy out there that was out there. So all of a sudden from inside my Notes client, I can still get at all those same files if I so choose to do that from inside Lotus Notes right here. I also have my same time integration. Then, if we go over here to Same Time Connect Client, I have the exact same thing. I have my places right here for Jeopardy and all that stuff. And same time must have just went down or something here. But I can now show my same kind of places right here and bring up my Jeopardy stuff. And my Quicker server went down too. The internet's not treating me well. Now, what happens if you happen to say, well, I happen to not be, a Notes customer. I haven't seen the light yet, and we happen to be using Microsoft Outlook. Am I left out in the cold with sharing a lot of these same pieces? And the answer is no. We also have what's called plugins or connectors into other products that are out there. So I can actually show you right now that I can now be inside Outlook, and guess what? I can open up Places from Outlook, and there, voila, there's my same thing. So I can do the exact same thing from inside an Outlook. And no, I don't want to make you my default thing. From inside Outlook, I can do the same thing with Connections out there, or Quicker Places. I can do the same thing with Connections. I can show business cards of my, I can show my business cards, the same business card pop up from inside here. I can add messages, add a person to an activity, all that stuff from inside my Outlook client. So again, we can support Notes, Outlook, whatever you want. You can also even be in the file system and get after the exact same thing. So if we actually open up just Microsoft Explorer, and if I want to get at those same documents, I can do the same exact thing. So I shrink this down, and voila, there are my places out here, my team places, and there are my places out there before. So again, I can just be at a simple File Explorer and still get to all of my documents. So our goal is, exceptional web experience is important, but again, making it easy for your end users to get there is just as important. Well, let's go back to our web browser now. And what happens now if your users are also using some other Microsoft technology? Well, let's bring up Outlook inside a portal application sitting inside WebSphere Portal. So what I'm going to do now is if I click on it, there you go. So basically now I'm going to bring up Exchange and SharePoint integrated into our same exceptional web experience. So basically I showed you Domino. Well, if you happen to have be an Exchange shop, so up there on the top is actually Microsoft Exchange being surfaced through my web experience. And then also the same time awareness, so I know Frank's logged on. So I actually get the same experience right there, so I can chat with them. I can bring up the business card right from inside Outlook, Exchange mail portal right there, and do the exact same things I did before. Over on the bottom right here, we happen to have an application from SharePoint. So on SharePoint, this company happens to track some to-do lists, trying to find presenters for demonstrations. So they have basically a Microsoft list application sitting in SharePoint. So what we wanted to do was say, well, am I able to access that from inside my portal application and maybe tie in some expertise location, like I found the Jeopardy guy, Robert, earlier. Can I find some experts that might solve some of my SharePoint list activities I need to work on? So over here is a portlet that we wrote using Portlet Factory, one of our development tools, and right now someone needs a demonstration done. So I'm going to click on this, and it's actually going to take us over to the SharePoint site saying, here's the task, we got to find someone to present, showcase at a certain location. So I say, okay, let's see if I can do that. So let's go back now inside our portal application, and what we've done is using some REST services, just basically said, I'm going to find an expert, and what we're going to do is go look at the basically list inside Connections, inside SharePoint, find out what the topic is, come over to Connections and Profiles, and find out who are the actual users of that, who are the actual experts now on that topic that I clicked on. So it turns out that these are potential people that might be able to help me out here. So let's just say that, you know what, where's my buddy here, Ron Espinito. I'm going to click on him and see if he might be able to help me. So I click on him, and there's everything I now need to know from our profiles about Ron to see if he's my guy to actually help me do a presentation on marketing. Well, sure enough, he's a marketing expert. A couple of people tagged him as a marketing expert. I can see his org chart. And then a cool feature over here in the top right is, how do I know Ron Espinito? Well, him and I are buddies, actually, because he's in my network. So I can do that. But let's say I pick somebody that might not be in my network. Oh, I picked somebody in my network again. Let me pick Dennis Michaels here, because he's not in my network. So basically, it says, I don't really know, on the top right there, I don't really know Ron Espinito personally. But I happen to know Cindy, who happens to know Dennis. So if I now need to get to Dennis for something, I now know that if I go to Cindy, who I do know, she can get me in with Dennis out there if I need to get him out there. So that's just an example of how using some of this expertise location can help you find people inside your network. Okay. Let's keep plowing ahead here. So let's go back now and start moving now into some information side of the house. We talked about content first. Then we talked about some collaboration, finding expertises and all that. Let's now start talking about doing some business inside our site. So let's just say now that you might want to do some data mining. So we have an insurance company now, and you want to look up some information about some of your customers and start drilling through the data and working with that data. How can you do that? Well, inside our exceptional web experience here with Portlet Factory, we have something called dashboards. And I can now build dashboards going after some back-end data that might be coming from Siebel or PeopleSoft or SAP or a data warehouse out there, and I can start looking at it. So basically over here on the left are some of my clients now that Frank belongs to. Then over here on the right, some information about the average and overall calculation of his insurance policies. And then I have some information over here on the left. As websites become more complicated, real estate becomes very key. So what we've implemented is the ability now to have some very dynamic sites so I can actually drill through some of Alex K's information here as I'm talking to him on the phone, and it just starts scrolling up in that little box for me. The page doesn't refresh. That information is just right there for that end user, Frank, to make better business decisions. If I want to work on a different customer here, like Betty, I can click on Betty over there. It updates my portlet on the right, updates my portlet on the left. So again, the full page doesn't refresh. I get this information. I can start looking at and make better business decisions that way very quickly. So again, this is called Portlet Factory with our dashboard extension on it. Then, if we have any SAP customers out there, how can I go after my back-end SAP systems and make them more usable for my end users in this exceptional web experience? So what we've done right here is, oh man, I'm just having some internet connectivity problems. But watch, Portal is very resilient. So basically now, what I have is some information about my customers coming from the BAPI calls. If you're an SAP person on the back end, I can now build some very rich applications. So if I'm very interested in a certain customer, I can actually just pick that customer. The bottom portlet changes now to reflect the data from that customer. And if I actually click on some information, it then will update the top information with that order for that customer. So again, I'm taking some back-end information from SAP, using it in a whole new way, and making it very manageable for Frank to start drilling through this information. If he needs to look at orders over history of time, I can now get a view from that graph of the orders over history of time. So again, if you have SAP-type applications, our exceptional web experience is a great way to front-end those to make them a lot more usable from your end user's perspective. Now, if you want to take analytics now to even a deeper level, where you start looking at some what-if analysis and drilling through the data like in OLAP cubes or multidimensional cubes, and I start looking at data in a whole new way, in a business intelligence way, that's where Cognos comes into play in our exceptional web experience. So right now I have Cognos on the back end, but I'm using our portal on the front end so that Frank can start looking at some data and make some business decisions based on that data. So basically what Cognos is going to use here is something called WebSphere Remote Portal, WSRP, the ability now to take information from other back-end systems that are maybe portal sites or whatever and feed that live into our website. So I started looking at some of my data up here on the top. And if I say I want to drill in to see what happened in the year, like say 2007, to see what the trend was, I click on that trend, and it's going to automatically go back, drill through that OLAP cube, and I find out that we did not have a good year in 2007. Our sales started tanking. And if I'm interested in finding out why that sales started tanking, I can start interacting with it by saying, well, what actually happened right here? And it's going to drill through that same cube again and go and get the next set of information. Well, if I click on it better, you'll get that next set of information about that data point that's out there, and I can actually now look and see exactly what happened on that one data line. If that's not really what I wanted, I can drill up and drill down. So again, if I just do it backwards, I can drill back up through my basically business intelligence OLAP cube using Cognos. So again, it's a great way for now you can give power users the ability to use this data with nothing more than a web browser interface. Again, power users can do the same things they're used to on a very rich client inside nothing but a web experience here. Any questions so far? Okay. Am I doing okay so far? Okay, just give me honest if I see something. Okay. Well, what about some other kind of rich web applications? How fancy can we get with some of these applications? Can I start doing things like dragging and dropping and that kind of things in nothing more than a web client? The answer is yes, you can. So what this allows you to do, this is an example of, let's say, a shopping type mentality where I'm starting to buy certain product that's out there. So again, I can start hovering over things that fly up windows about my certain products I want to buy, and then look at that kind of information. Or I only want to look at computers in my budget that happen to be about $1,200. So if you notice that only the $1,200 ones are actually they're listed right there. Whoops. We got too many things going here at one time. Oh, there we go. Don't send anything to Firefox. Okay, so we're going to log back in here with Frank here. And it'll come back right where we left off. So basically what we're doing is we're making some very rich, with our Portal Factory tooling, being able to make some very rich UI applications that allow you to drag and drop. So the next thing we're going to show when this comes back up is the ability to take some objects and just drag them and drop them right onto my shopping cart. And let's go back to our business scenario here, our Zeta Computer website. And I'll be able to drag and drop applications now into a shopping cart and dynamically have a very robust application. So if you look at exceptional web experience, the bar has been raised. You just can't do static type stuff anymore. You need to be able to do things like I want to take an actual PC here, and I just want to drag and drop that right onto my shopping cart. And drag and drop that one, and it dynamically builds my order up there on the left side. So again, having a very rich UI allows you to do some things that you never thought you could do inside a portal type application. Well, the next thing I want to talk about is forms. A lot of people are into start doing some forms on the website. So we have our product Lotus Forms that integrates with Lotusphere Portal that will allow you now to create fields and forms, very rich type forms applications, but display them in nothing more than a web browser. And also, because these forms are legal documents, we have some technology that lets you sign a digital form, keep the signature, the data, and the form together in one unit, and store that away for legal reasons. So we have a great solution for this. So for example, if I want to look at an account banking example here of a banking form from my web browser, I'm now going to bring this up, and it's going to actually show me my Zeta Bank. It's out here. And I can now search on my web. So this is not a bunch of web parts or anything like that, or an application was built. This is actually a form that was built using our Forms tool, but it looks like a very rich live application. And the difference is that as I fill out my form and start working on some things, the information is coming from a back-end system and fills out my form for me. So these are very easy to build, very rapid to build. And if I decide to sign this at the end, it turns into a legal document. So it's not just a bunch of JSPs sitting on a web page that I don't really know what's going on as it goes back to a database. This is a live, breathing form that I can keep track of and score. And also, and me bring up my presentation here. We can actually run this on mobile devices, and I was hopefully going to do this, but I haven't been able to figure out a way, but you guys can stop up afterwards, but you can actually run these on iPad. Once I type in IBM's cryptic 8-character security code, but you can actually run these forms on an iPad. So again, it's all clientless based. So if you need to be in the field with your insurance agents or your healthcare agents and you need to fill out some forms using an iPad, I can actually do that from inside our forms server. So again, web-based or mobile devices with our forms product, and it's a pretty cool scenario that way. So again, iPad is an example of maybe a pervasive device. You might want to use a form-based thing as you fill out something remotely, press submit, and that form goes back to the corporate office. Okay. If you can actually use this for other things, if we could switch over to the other machine for a second, please. Another example is start using this for customer-facing websites. So this happens to be an example of a fictitious telecom company that we came up with. So that way a user can drill through the different products for this and log on and buy different things. Of course, I think I lost my... oh, there we go. So I can actually drill through and look at different products out there and all that kind of stuff. The same site, though, can also be used for customer support. So when a support agent logs in, like our buddy Alex, who sits in a call center, logs into this very rich experience here, he now sees he's got his headset on. The person who's on the public site has a problem. You know, they clicked the button and did a voice transfer, and they can start talking to him. And Samantha says, you know, oops, wrong mouse. I don't happen to have my thing. So he says, I'm going to click on Samantha. The call comes to his headset. The back end goes out to the back end, grabs her customer information, goes out to the call center application for the last person that called Samantha, a service, and then also what orders that Samantha has actually purchased. So as I'm talking to Samantha, all this information now is pushed to Alex, saying, Alex, everything you need to help this customer now is at your fingertips. Have you ever called someone on support and they say, wait a minute, I got to bring up your screen of information. They bring up like 5 or 6 different applications to find this out. If you have the right web experience, especially our exceptional web experience, I can push all this information to that call agent and make them more productive. As Samantha says, well, I talked to somebody last month about it, I can just hover over that service call using something called live text, and automatically what that person talked about is hovered right there in front of Alex. And he can actually see what was actually shown by that person. Makes his life much easier. If Samantha says, well, my order, I don't think I ever shipped it, he can actually hover over this, and there's a picture of what she ordered right there. So it actually went out to the web content management system, grabbed the information about that product, and showed it right to Alex, saying, oh, I see exactly what you're talking about. And she says it never shipped. So guess what? I click on that, automatically doing a mashup out to Google Maps. It tracks and says, we actually did ship that to Chicago. And oh, by the way, I can bring up the tracking number and who signed for it, and I can actually bring up right here that the tracking number is this, Samantha, and you actually signed for it. I think you're losing it. But again, he never had to leave, Alex had to leave his exceptional web experience. Everything was being pushed right at him, real time, with this example. Okay. So basically, if we could switch back, please, that'd be awesome. So the last thing I want to end with is a little bit about how end users can do this themselves. Because that's a big thing about exceptional web experiences. You know, we want to empower not IT to do everything for people, but we want to empower people to do this for themselves. So what we can allow, if you choose to do this, is we can, if I click on the right thing here, we can actually empower end users to build their own stuff. So they might start looking at some of the pages I showed you today, and they say, you know what I really want is I want to steal something from one page, add something from another page. So you might be able to give them their own personal page out there. And what an end user like Frank can do is he can come over here, click on Actions, click on Edit Page, and now he can start building his own exceptional web experience. So this is really key in this new paradigm is we're letting end users create content. We're letting end users find information and use information in new ways. And we're going to let them actually create their own exceptional web experience because they know better how to do their job than anyone in IT ever will. So what I'm going to allow them to do is actually come over here and customize what things they'd like to have on their own personal page. So for example, if I want to add my own blog portlet or my own wiki, I can just add that. Or if I want to add my own who is here, my favorite portlet, who is here, I can just drag that thing and drop it. You see that right over there? And just drop that right onto the page. And that looks pretty good. I click Save and Exit. And I've now just added another application to my page that I picked from a list. And as the page refreshes here, we should see who's logged onto this page right now. But again, the goal here is make it easy for people to, and of course, we had problems at the same time earlier, and of course, so I'm not sure why that's not coming up now. But the ability to drag and drop applications is very easy. And the fun thing is, you say, you know what, we kind of maybe made a mistake on that portlet. I can easily just come right back here to customize my page, and within mere seconds, we can easily get rid of that mistake by saying, let's delete that one and not add it. So instead, let's add our own blog portlet, or we'll add our own wiki. How's that sound? We'll add our own wiki. I drag that onto the page and say, what do you want to call this? We're going to call this one Frank's Wiki. And behind the scenes now, it's automatically going to, in our content management system, create him a wiki, provision it, make everything he needs to do his job, and now he has his own personal wiki so he can keep track of whatever he works on right now, just that easily. Oh, no one said I forgot to press Save and Exit. But again, if you see, it's pretty easy for Frank now to start building his own exceptional web experience. So right now, in the background, it's going out and creating all the stuff I need to have Frank's private wiki that's out there. And I'll just take a couple of seconds to do that. So what we tried to show, as I wrap up, because I'm getting the signal here, we're running out of time, then we take some questions. So what I tried to show was this. Our goal with exceptional web experience is what? It's empowering people to be more efficient. Hopefully I showed you how Frank was able to create his own news articles for his team. He was able to find expertise to build his fact sheet for Jeopardy and find people to help him do that. Be more innovative, build their own personal pages, or yet use data in new ways like we did in the dashboard type products and work in context. Frank never really had to leave his web page, and if he happened to be in another tool like his mail or inside his SameTime or inside his file system of his local machine, he was still able to get access to the content he was at. We did not leave him saying, please always go back to the browser. We let him work where he wants to. And the key thing is work. We've made these people more productive by having this exceptional web experience, and all of these tools intertwined and pushed in a personalized manner to the end user. So, any questions about what we talked about? Or anything you want to see while we're still here? Dead silence. Well, I thank you all for coming to my session. Enjoy Harry Potter tonight at Universal, and I'll be around afterwards to answer any one-on-one questions. So thank you very much.